Imagine a woman whose presence lights up any room. Abigail was that woman. With her charming beauty and rare wisdom, she stood out in her community. Her gentle voice and bright eyes reflected a heart full of compassion and understanding. Abigail wasn't just admired for her looks but for her ability to listen and give advice, being a true pillar of strength and sensibility for those around her. However, Abigail's life wasn't easy. Married to Nabal, a rude and foolish man, she often found herself in difficult situations. Yet, despite the challenges, Abigail maintained her dignity and wisdom. She knew that her intelligence and kindness could make a difference, not just in her own life but in the lives of many others. Abigail was a living testament that true beauty goes far beyond appearance. It lies in actions and the heart. While Abigail embodied grace and wisdom, her husband Nabal was the complete opposite. A wealthy man with a hardened heart, Nabal was known for his explosive temper and selfish ways. He ruled his household with an iron fist, disregarding the feelings and needs of others. His wealth came from his vast estates and numerous flocks, but his soul was poor and petty. People in the community feared and avoided Nabal, as he was known to offend and scorn anyone who crossed his path. His irrational behavior and inability to show gratitude or respect made him a detestable figure. For Abigail, living alongside Nabal was a constant challenge, but she faced his foolishness with patience and wisdom few possessed. Despite the difficulties, Abigail stood firm, knowing that her inner strength could overcome her husband's harshness. At this time, David, the future king of Israel, was on the run, seeking refuge in the wilderness to escape King Saul's pursuit. With him was a loyal group of men who followed and protected him. Living as nomads, David and his men often found themselves in precarious situations, needing supplies and shelter. During their travels, David and his men ended up protecting the lands and flocks of many local shepherds, including Nabal's property. They asked for nothing in return, but their presence provided security against invaders and thieves. At one point, knowing the abundance of resources Nabal had, David decided to send some of his men to request provisions, hoping for some relief from their needs. David believed that, given the help he and his men had provided, Nabal would not hesitate to show a gesture of generosity. David, always prudent, sent 10 of his young men with a peace offering to Nabal. They arrived during a sheep-shearing festival, a time of great celebration on Nabal's lands. Respectfully, David's men greeted Nabal and made their request in a humble and courteous manner, reminding him of how David and his group had protected his shepherds and flocks in the desert. They said, "Peace to you, peace to your house, and peace to all that you have. David, our leader, has heard that you are shearing your sheep. When your shepherds were with us, we did them no harm, and nothing was missing from them all the time they were in Carmel. Therefore, please find it in your heart to give your servants and your son David whatever you can." Upon hearing David's men's request, Nabal reacted with surprising rudeness. He looked at them with contempt and, in an arrogant tone, replied, "Who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? Nowadays, many servants are running away from their masters. Why should I take my bread, my water, and the meat I have prepared for my shearers and give them to men who come from I don't know where?" Nabal's response was an insult not only to David but also to the protection David and his men had provided. In his greed and arrogance, Nabal failed to recognize the kindness and fairness in David's request. David's young men, shocked and offended by Nabal's response, quickly returned to their leader to report what had happened. Nabal's disrespect fueled David's anger, compelling him to take decisive action against this ungrateful and contemptuous man. Upon hearing his men's report, David was consumed with intense fury. He had extended a hand in friendship and respect, only to be rejected by Nabal. Feeling outraged and humiliated, David decided he could not let such an insult go unanswered. With determination in his eyes, he ordered his men to prepare for battle, saying, "Let every man gird on his sword." David and about 400 of his men armed themselves and set out towards Nabal's property, ready to avenge the affront they had suffered. David's intent was clear. He was willing to destroy Nabal and all the men in his household as a form of justice for the disrespect and ingratitude shown. David's anger was fierce, and the situation seemed to be heading toward a bloody outcome, leaving no room for reconciliation or understanding. As David's rage intensified, one of Nabal's servants, familiar with Abigail's wise and compassionate nature, ran to her to report what had happened. He told her how Nabal had insulted David's men and how David was now marching with his men to avenge the insult. Abigail, understanding the seriousness of the situation, acted quickly. Without wasting any time, she gathered a generous supply of provisions: 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 prepared sheep, 5 measures of roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs. Loading it all on donkeys, Abigail set out to meet David. She said nothing to Nabal, knowing he would never approve of her actions. Abigail followed her heart and wisdom, determined to prevent a massacre and save her family from imminent destruction. As she descended the hillside, Abigail saw David and his men approaching. They were armed and battle-ready, their determination visible in their faces. When Abigail spotted them, she quickly dismounted from her donkey and bowed before David. In a gesture of humility and respect, she spoke with urgency and sincerity. "My lord, the blame is entirely mine. Please let your servant speak to you. Listen to what she has to say. Don't take into account what my husband Nabal said. He is a foolish man, as his name suggests. I, your servant, did not see the men you sent. Now, my lord, as the Lord lives and as you live, it was the Lord who kept you from bloodshed and from taking vengeance into your own hands. May your enemies and all who seek to harm my lord be like Nabal. Accept this gift that your servant has brought to my lord and distribute it to the men who follow you." Abigail's words were filled with wisdom and humility. She acknowledged the injustice committed by Nabal and pleaded for David's mercy, offering him and his men the gifts she had brought. David, impressed by Abigail's courage and wisdom, began to reconsider his intentions. David listened attentively to Abigail's words, and something in her speech touched him deeply. Abigail spoke with a wisdom that transcended the situation, recognizing David's righteousness while also appealing to his sense of reason. She made him see that true greatness lies not in vengeance but in showing mercy and acting justly. Abigail continued, emphasizing the importance of divine intervention. "My lord, let me say more. The Lord, the God of Israel, has sent you to be the future king. Therefore, do not let a revenge for a foolish offense cause you to be guilty. May your actions be remembered with honor, not with regret and unnecessary bloodshed. David, do not let a thoughtless act tarnish your story." David, moved by Abigail's eloquence and spirit, recognized the truth in her words. He understood that Abigail's wisdom had not only diverted a great harm, but had also preserved his character and future mission. With a calmer heart and clearer mind, David accepted the gifts and thanked Abigail for her intervention that had steered him away from destruction. After hearing Abigail's words and accepting the gifts, David felt a deep sense of relief. He realized that his anger and desire for revenge could have led to irreparable consequences, not only for Nabal but for himself and his future. With gratitude, David blessed Abigail and praised her wisdom. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me today, and blessed be your discernment and your decision." Abigail's intervention not only saved Nabal's life and that of his family but also changed the course of events. When Nabal learned of what had happened, his hardened heart could not bear the stress, and he suffered a stroke that led to his death. With Nabal's death, Abigail, now a widow, was recognized by David as a woman of invaluable worth. He took her as his wife, and her destiny changed dramatically. Abigail's story, which began with a challenging marriage and an imminent crisis, ended with a new position of honor and influence beside David, marking a transformation not just in her life but in the history of Israel.